Hello, and welcome to episode 20 of the Idiot Book Nook. My name is Blazewing, and my pronouns are she, her, and they, them.
I am the Reading Dragon, and my pronouns are she, her.
I'm Lady Punnet, and my pronouns are she, her, and they, them.
Cool. We are doing Bartimaeus series, Book 1, The Amulet of Samarkand. If you would like to reach us on socials, you can do so. You can find Lady Punnet on TikTok at paulina.avalon. You can find myself on Linktree at linktr.ee/blazewing2010, and you can find The Reading Dragon at linktr.ee/thereadingdragon. If you would like to take a look at our podcast feed and or leave us a voice message, you can do so at anchor.fm/idiot-book-nook. And if you would like to take a look at our website, you can do so at idiotbooknook.wordpress.com. I will eventually be making a link tree for all of that shit.
Do it.
So we can just give you the link tree link. So, with episode 20, we are going to be getting into chapter 3. But two of us have never been through this book before, so we don't know the layout of it. We don't know the material. We have no idea what's going on. And we discovered that chapter 3 is literally a page and a half.
Which was my fuck up last episode.
And I don't understand why we have a chapter that is only a page and a half. So, with episode 20 of the Idiot Book Nook, we are going to be combining chapters 3 and 4, and then we will have a discussion on both of them at the end.
Because, damn it, John!
With that being said, narrator! Take it away.
The Bartimaeus Trilogy, Book 1, The Amulet of Samarkand, by Jonathan Stroud, narrated by the Reading Dragon, voice acted by Blazewing 2010 and Lady Punnet. Chapter 3. I hate the taste of mud. It is no fit thing for a being of air and fire. The cloying weight of earth oppresses me greatly whenever I come into contact with it. That is why I am choosy about my incarnations. Birds, good. Insects, good. Bats, okay. Things that run fast are fine. Tree dwellers are even better. Subterranean things, not good. Moles, bad. But there's no point being facetious when you have a protective shield to bypass. I had reasoned correctly that it did not extend underground. The mole dug its way deep, deep down under the foundations of the wall. No magical alarm sounded, though I did hit my head 5 times on a pebble. I burrowed upward again, reaching the surface after 20 minutes of scuffling, and turning my heavy nose up at the juicy and turning my beady nose up at the juicy worms. I uncovered after every couple of scrapes. The mole poked its head cautiously out of the little pile of earth it had driven through the immaculate surface of Simon Lovelace's lawn. It looked around, checking out the scene. There were lights on in the house, on the ground floor. The curtains were drawn. The upper floors, from what the mole could see, were dark. The translucent blue span of the magical defense system arched overhead. One yellow sentry trudged its stupid way 10 feet above the shrubbery. The other 2 were presumably behind the house. I tried the 7th plane again. Still nothing. Still that uneasy sense of danger. Oh well. The mole retreated underground and tunneled below the grass roots toward the house. It appeared in the flower bed just below the nearest windows. It was thinking hard. There was no point going further in this guise. Tempting through it, tempting through it was to try to break into the cellars. A different method would have to be found. To the mole's furry ears came the sound of laughter and clinking glasses. It was surprisingly loud, echoing from very close by. An air vent, cracked with age, was set in the wall not 2 feet away. It led indoors. With some relief, I became a fly.
And we are now moving on to Chapter 4, and we will end up having a discussion afterwards.
Yes. Chapter 4. From the security of the air vent, I peered with my multifaceted eyes into a rather traditional drawing room. There was a thick pile carpet, nasty striped wallpaper, a hideous crystal thing pretending to be a chandelier, 2 oil paintings that were dark with age, a sofa, and 2 easy chairs, also striped, a low coffee table laden with a silver tray, and, on the tray, a bottle of red wine and no glasses. The glasses were in the hands of 2 people. One of them was a woman. She was youngish for a woman, which means infinitesimally infinitesimally young, and probably quite good-looking in a fleshy sort of way. Big eyes, dark hair, bobbed. I memorized her automatically. I would appear in her guise tomorrow when I went back to visit that kid. Only naked. Let's see how his very steely but ever so adolescent mind responded to that. However, for the moment, I was more concerned with the man this woman was smiling and nodding at. He was tall, thin, handsome in a rather bookish sort of way, with his hair slicked back by some pungent oil. He had small round glasses and a large mouth with good teeth. He had a prominent jaw. Something told me that this was the magician, Simon Lovelace. Was it his indefinable aura of power and authority? Was it the proprietorial way in which he gestured around the room? Or was it the small imp which floated at his shoulder on the second plane, warily watching out for danger on every side? I rubbed my 2 front legs together with irritation. I would have to be very careful. The imp complicated matters. It was a pity I wasn't a spider. They can sit still for hours and think nothing of it. Flies are far more jittery. But if I changed here, the magician's slave would be certain to sense it. I had to force my unwilling body to lurk, and ignore the ache that was building up again, this time inside my chitin. The magician was talking. He did little else. The woman gazed at him with spaniel eyes so wide and silly with adoration that I wanted to bite her.
It will be the most magnificent occasion, Amanda. You will be the toast of London society. Did you know that the Prime Minister himself is looking forward to your estate? Yes, I have that on good authority. My enemies have been hounding him for weeks with their vile insinuations, but he has always remained committed to holding the conference at the Hall. So you see, my love, I can still influence him when it counts. The thing is to know how to play him and how to flatter his vanity. Keep it to yourself, but he is actually rather weak. His specialty is charm, and even that he seldom bothers with now. Why should he? He's got men in suits to do it for him.
The magician rattled on like this for several minutes, name-dropping with tireless energy. The woman drank her wine, nodded, gasped, and exclaimed at the right moments, and leaned closer to him along the sofa. I nearly buzzed with boredom. Suddenly, the imp became alert. Its head swiveled 180 degrees and peered at a door at the other end of the room. It tweaked the magician's ear gently in warning. Seconds later, the door opened and a black-jacketed flunky with a bald head stepped respectfully in.
Pardon me, sir, but your car is ready. Ah, thank you, Carter. We shan't be a moment.
The flunky withdrew. The magician replaced his, still full, wine glass on the coffee table and took hold of the woman's hand. He kissed it gallantly. Behind his back, the imp made faces of extreme disgust.
It pains me to have to go, Amanda, but duty calls. I will not be home this evening. May I call you? The theater tomorrow night, perhaps?
That would be charming, Simon.
Then that is settled. My good friend Makepace has a new play out. I shall get tickets presently. For now, Carter will drive you home.
Man, woman, and imp excited, leaving the door ajar. Behind them, a wary fly crept from its hiding place and sped soundlessly across the room to a vantage point that gave a view of the hall. For a few minutes there was activity, coats being brought, orders given, doors slammed. Then the magician departed his house. I flew out into the hall. It was wide and cold, and had a floor of black and white tiles. Bright green ferns grew from gigantic ceramic pots. I circled the chandelier, listening. It was very quiet. The only sounds came from a distant kitchen, and they were innocent enough. Just the banging of pots and plates, and several loud belches, presumably emanating from the cook. I debated sending out a discreet magical pulse to see if I could detect the whereabouts of the magician's artifacts, but decided that it was far too risky. The sentry creatures outside might pick it up, for one thing, even if there was no further guard. I, the fly, would have to go hunting myself. All the planes were clear. I went along the hall, then, following an intuition, up the stairs. On the landing, a thickly carpeted corridor led in two directions, each lined with oil paintings. I was immediately interested in the right-hand passage, for halfway along it was a spy. To human eyes, it was a smoke alarm. But on the other planes, its true form was revealed. An upside-down toad with unpleasantly bulbous eyes sitting on the ceiling. Every minute or so, it hopped on the spot, rotating a little. When the magician returned, it would relate to him anything that had happened. I sent a small magic the toad's way. A thick, oily vapor issued from the ceiling and wrapped itself around the spy, obscuring its vision. As it hopped and croaked in confusion, I flew rapidly past it, down the passage, to the door at the end. Alone of the doors in the corridor, this did not have a keyhole. Under its white paint, the wood was reinforced with strips of metal. Two good reasons for trying this one first. There was a minute crack under the door. It was too small for an insect, but I was aching for a change anyway. The fly dissolved into a dribble of smoke, which passed out of sight under the door, just as the vapor screen around the toad melted away. In the room, I became a child. If I had known that apprentice's name, I would have been malicious and taken his form, just to give Simon Lovelace a head start when he began to piece the theft together. But, hold on. But without his name, I had no handle on him. So I became a boy I had known once before, someone I had loved. His dust had long ago floated away along the Nile. So my crime would not hurt him, and anyhow it pleased me to remember him like this. He was brown-skinned, bright-eyed, dressed in a white loincloth. He looked around in that way he had, his head slightly cocked to one side. The room had no windows. There were several cabinets against the walls, filled with magical paraphernalia. Most of it was quite useless, fit only for stage shows. But there were a few intriguing items there. There was a summoning horn that I knew was genuine, because it made me feel ill to look at it. One blast of that, and anything in that magician's power would be at his feet, begging for mercy and pleading to do his bidding. It was a cruel instrument, and very old, and I couldn't go near it. In another cabinet was an eye made out of clay. I had seen one of them before, in the head of a golem. I wondered if the fool knew the potential of that eye. Almost certainly not. He'd have picked it up as a quaint keepsake on some package holiday in Central Europe. Magical tourism, I ask you. Well, with luck, it might kill him one day. And there was the Amulet of Samarkand. It sat in a small case, all on its own, protected by glass and its own reputation. I walked over to it, flicking through the planes, seeking danger and finding, well, nothing explicit. But on the seventh plane, I had the distinct impression that something was stirring. Not here, but close by. I had better be quick. The amulet was small, dull, and made of beaten gold. It hung from a short gold chain. In its center was an oval piece of jade. The gold had been pressed with simple notched designs depicting running steeds. Horses were the prized possessions of the people from Central Asia who had made the amulet 3,000 years before, and had later buried it in the tomb of one of their princesses. A Russian archaeologist had found it in the 1950s, and before long it had been stolen by magicians who recognized its value. How Simon Lovelace had come by it, who exactly he had murdered or swindled to get it, I had no idea. I cocked my head again, listening. All was quiet in the house. I raised my hand over the cabinet, smiling at my reflection as it clenched its fist. Then I brought my hand down and drove it through the glass. A throb of magical energy resounded through all 7 planes. I seized the amulet and hung it around my neck. I turned swiftly. The room was as before, but I could sense something on the 7th plane, moving swiftly and coming closer. The time for stealth was over. As I ran for the door, I noticed out of the corner of my eye a portal suddenly opening in midair. Inside the portal was a blackness that was immediately obscured as something stepped out through it. I charged at the door and hit it with my small boy's fist. The door smashed open like a bent playing card. I ran past it without stopping. In the corridor, the toad turned toward me and opened its mouth. A green gobbet of slime issued forth, which suddenly accelerated down at me, aiming for my head. I dodged, and the slime splattered on the wall behind me, destroying a painting, and everything down to the bare bricks beneath it. I threw a bolt of compression at the toad. With a small croak of regret, it imploded into a dense blob of matter the size of a marble and dropped to the floor. I didn't break stride. As I ran on down the corridor, I placed a protective shield around my physical body in case of further missiles, which was a wise move, as it happened, because the next instant a detonation struck the floor directly behind me. The impact was so great that I was sent flying headlong at an angle down the corridor and half into the wall. Green flames flicked around me, leaving streaks on the decor like the fingers of a giant hand. I struggled to my feet amid the confusion of shattered bricks and turned around. Standing over the broken door at the end of the corridor was something that had taken the form of a very tall man with bright red skin and the head of a jackal.
Bartimaeus!
Another detonation shot down the corridor. I somersaulted under it, aiming for the stairs, and as the green explosion vaporized the corner of the wall, rolled head over heels down the steps, through the banisters and 6 feet down onto the black and white tile floor, cracking it quite badly. I got to my feet and took a look at the front door. Through the frosted glass behind it, I could see the hulking yellow outline of one of the 3 sentinels. It was lying in wait, little realizing that it could be seen from inside. I decided to make my exit elsewhere. Thus does superior intelligence win over brute strength any day of the week. Speaking of which, I had to get out fast. Noises from above indicated pursuit. I ran through a couple of rooms, a library, a dining room, each time making a break for the window and each time retreating when one or more of the yellow creatures above hold on. I misread that bit. Each time retreating when one or more of the yellow creatures hove into view outside. Their foolishness in making themselves so obvious was only equaled by my caution in avoiding whatever magical weapons they carried. Behind me, my name was being called in a voice of fury. With growing frustration, I opened the next door and found myself in the kitchen. There were no more internal doors, but one led out to what looked like a lean-to greenhouse, filled with herbs and greens. Beyond was the garden, and also the 3 sentinels, who came motoring around the side of the house at surprising speed on their rotating legs. To gain time, I put a seal on the door behind me. Then I looked around me and saw the cook. He was sitting far back in his chair with his toes on the kitchen table, a fat, jovial-looking man with a red face and meat cleaver in his hand. He was studiously paring his nails with the cleaver, flicking each fragment of nail expertly through the air to land in the fireplace beside him. As he did so, he watched me continuously with his dark little eyes. I felt unease. He didn't seem at all perturbed to see a small Egyptian boy come running into his kitchen. I checked him out on the different planes. On 1 to 6, he was exactly the same, a portly cook in a white apron. But on the 7th... Uh-oh.
One moment, folks. Just bear with us for 1 second here as Lady Pundit goes to do a thing, apparently.
Yes. So in this brief interlude, Blazewing, how are you liking this so far?
I will give my impressions once we are in discussion portion.
Okay. In the meantime, I'm going to take some water. So I will pick up from the last paragraph. Oh, wait, hold on.
Sorry, guys. I'm trying not to be too obvious, but I also had to put an earphone in so that way you guys can't hear what I hear.
Yep.
Okay.
Would you like to take the next line?
Sure, I'll take the next
Okay,
line.
so
Starting from the last
there you go.
paragraph. I felt unease. He didn't seem at all perturbed to see a small Egyptian boy come running into his kitchen. I checked him out on the different planes. On 1 to 6, he was exactly the same, a portly cook in a white apron. But on the 7th... Uh-oh.
Bartimaeus?
Farquhar?
How's it going?
Not bad.
Haven't seen you in a what round.
No, I guess not.
Shame, eh?
Yes, well, here I am.
Here you are indeed.
While this fascinating conversation was going on, the sounds of a sustained series of detonations came from the other side of the door. My seal held firm, though. I smiled, as urbanely as I could.
Jabbar seems as excitable as ever.
Yes, he's just the same. Only, I think perhaps slightly more
I think that's my line, actually.
Oh, okay.
So reverse those.
Yeah.
Yes, he's just the same. Only I think perhaps slightly more hungry.
So I didn't get to read the Jabbar seems excitable, sorry.
Pardon?
Jabbar seems as excitable as ever.
Yes, he's just the same. Only I think perhaps slightly more hungry. Bartimaeus. That's the only change I've noticed in him. He never seems satisfied, even when he's been fed. But that's what happens all too rarely these days, as you can imagine.
Treat 'em mean, keep 'em keen. That's your master's watchword, isn't it? Still, he must be fairly potent to be able to have you and Jabbar as his slaves. The cook gave a thin smile, and with a flick of the knife, sent a nail paring spinning to the ceiling. It pierced the plaster and lodged there.
Now, Bartimaeus. We don't use the S word in civilized company, do we? Jabbar and I are playing the long game.
Of course you are.
Speaking of disparities in power, I noticed that you chose to avoid addressing me on the 7th plane. This seems a little impolite. Can it be that you are uneasy with my true form?
Queasy, for quarrel, not uneasy.
Well, this is all very pleasant. I admire your choice of form, by the way. Bartimaeus very calmly. But I see that you are somewhat weighed down by a certain amulet. Perhaps you could be so good as to take it off and put it on the table. Then, if you care to tell me which magician you are working for, I might consider ways of ending this meeting in a non-fatal manner.
That's kind of you, but you know I can't do that. The cook prodded the edge of the table with the tip of his cleaver.
Let me be frank. You can and will. It is nothing personal, of course. One day we may work together again. But for now, I am bound just as you are, and I too have my charge to fulfill. So it comes, as it always does, to a question of power. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I note that you do not have too much confidence in yourself today. Otherwise, you would have left by the front door, quailing the Triloids as you went, rather than allowing them to shepherd you around the house to me.
I was merely following a whim.
Perhaps you would stop edging towards the window, Bartimaeus. Such a ploy would be pitifully obvious even to a human. And besides, the Triloids wait for you there. Hand over the amulet, or you will discover that your ramshackle defense shield will count for nothing.
He stood up and held out his hand. There was a pause. Behind my seal, Jabor's patient, if unimaginative, detonation still sounded. The door itself must have long since been turned to powder. In the garden, the 3 sentinels hovered, all their eyes trained on me. I looked around the room for inspiration.
The amulet, Bartimaeus.
I raised my hand, and with a heavy, rather theatrical sigh, took hold of the amulet. Then I leaped to my left. At the same time, I released the seal on the door. Farquhar gave a tut of annoyance and began a gesture. As he did so, he was hit square on by a particularly powerful detonation that came shooting through the empty gap where the seal had been. It sent him backward into the fireplace, and the brickwork collapsed upon him. One moment, please.
Bear with us for one moment, folks.
Is it the boyfriend?
Pretty sure.
Sorry about that. Okay. I smashed my way into the greenhouse just as Jabor stepped through the gap into the kitchen. As Farquhar emerged from the rubble, I was breaking out into the garden. The 3 sentinels converged on me, eyes wide and legs rotating. Scything claws appeared at the ends of their blobby feet. I cast an illumination of the brightest kind. The whole garden was lit up as if by an exploding sun. The sentinels' eyes were dazzled. They chittered with pain. I leaped over them and ran through the garden, dodging bolts of magic that sprang from the house, incinerating trees. At the far end of the garden, between a compost heap and a motorized lawnmower, I vaulted the wall. I tore through the blue latticework of magical nodes, leaving a boy-shaped hole. Instantly, alarm bells began ringing all over the grounds. I hit the pavement outside, the amulet bouncing and banging on my chest. On the other side of the wall, I heard the sound of galloping hooves. It was high time I made a change. Peregrine falcons are the fastest birds on record. They can attain a speed of 200 kilometers an hour in diving flight. Rarely has one achieved this horizontally over the roofs of North London. Some would even doubt that this was possible, particularly while carrying a weighty amulet around its neck. Suffice it to say, however, that when Farquhar and Jabor landed in the Hampstead back street, creating an invisible obstruction that was immediately hit by a speeding moving van, I was nowhere to be seen. I was long gone.
So, that ends chapter 4.
Yes.
Bartimaeus not really having a good day.
No, he's not. He is having shit luck.
Also, apparently he naturally doesn't have flesh.
Apparently.
And when he was sneaking in, he obscured the frog's vision, which would have raised... He was all concerned about, things the frog had noticed.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't have flying past the frog have been just a bit easier? I get that he turned into smoke later on, but maybe, crawling under the door or something like that as the fly.
Frogs like flies. They like eating flies.
Fair.
He he probably thought, I shouldn't do this in my current form. I don't want to get eaten.
Fair. I will give that. So, Lady Punnet, what do you have for thoughts?
Well, some things that I've noticed with this is it's interesting how the demons know each other. Because it seems like in this world, demons are eternal.
Yep.
So therefore, they are like, oh yeah, we're probably going to work together again soon. So just do what you got to do, but I'm not going to let you do it.
Mm-hmm.
They both.
So it's
Sorry,
kind
go
of,
ahead.
so it's kind of like coworkers in a way.
They also both acknowledge that the other is bound and has to do their duty, and they seem to have an innate understanding of what that means, even though they are trying to convince each other to stop what they're doing or to shirk their duties, and knowing that it's not really going to happen because they are magically bound to do their duties.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost more of a... It seems almost more of a... Not a nicety, but... Pleasantry, or maybe small talk. You know, just kind of chit-chat before the fight, or, you know, when...
Water cooler
talk, yeah, because, I mean, they are both in the workplace.
John?
Also seems like a bit of...
You working again?
Almost seems like a bit of banter between them is more like... For those of you familiar with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you know those fucking talks that Buffy has with her fighting buddies while they're in the middle of battle. Like, they'll be carrying on a fucking conversation in the middle of this fucking massive fight.
Yeah, it's like, it's Tuesday. This Tuesday.
Yeah.
So,
which is interesting. That creates a whole other level of dynamic, I think. Which is, I like it. I really like it.
John? Dave? You working again? Yeah.
Just sorting some stuff out.
Yeah, just sorting some stuff out.
Do you want to stop? You're causing me a headache. No, not really. Kind of can't. It's my work contract. You know how it is. Oh, yeah, I know. Fair. Yeah. Doesn't mean I'm not going to try and stop you. Oh, I know. Anyways.
Just not the face. Yep. I gotta make it believable. Not the face.
Yep. Anything else, Lady Punnet?
It's interesting how he views the humans, too, because of the whole, like,
in a fleshy sort of way.
Way. And how he's like, he understands human emotion because he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna transform into this naked girl in front of the boy. See how smug he is then, because he understands that adolescent boys get flustered very easily.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah, it's like, I could change into her and just present myself nude in front of this scrawny kid. See how he reacts.
Oh, demons.
Which just adds to the theory that he is a trickster demon.
So already, even though this is kind of like a young adult book, it seems like we have a bit more of a layer to Bartimaeus than just a two-dimensional character. It seems like this character is starting to pop into the third dimension already, whereas, you know, the first 2 or 3 chapters was more... It's just kind of a picture of him. It's like, yeah, no, this is an actual avatar of him. More like here's an entirely third dimension. Here's a bit more personality to him. Which is kind of cool.
And he's just like so annoyed at this entire situation all throughout. I was like, God damn it. Why? Of all the stupid shit I could be doing, why this?
Yep.
A thing I found interesting is that it specified that the imp was on the second plane.
Which means things don't actually have to exist on all 7 planes. That being said, it also infers that humans exist naturally on all 7 planes.
I actually thought maybe at first it was like the humans mainly exist on that plane.
The first plane?
They exist on that plane but can be seen on all planes, kind of similar to our theory, like ghosts. They're on all planes, but you can only see them on certain ones.
Yeah. Which is pretty interesting, especially with how it's described. And the fact that this imp One, could only be seen on the second plane. Two, didn't seem like it could do a whole lot, but we have yet to see what all that imp could do should we revisit it again. If memory serves correctly, we might. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Which leads us back to, depending on the skill level and the commands that the summoner is able to do, also adding to that the kind of entity being summoned. Because there are in existence lesser demons or lesser entities that can only do certain things automatically.
Anything else?
Nothing I can think of off the top of my head, but those were the main points of interest. Also, it seems that whoever this female character is kind of similar to a what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, a young girl, like a kind of like a gold digger almost.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of getting that kind of vibe, like, oh, you're powerful and stuff. I want to get in with you.
Maybe,
especially with that line, like she cozied up close to him on the couch.
Maybe,
unless she was drunk.
Maybe she is somebody that he is trying to impress with, flashy shit. I don't know.
Or you mean like a patron almost?
Like a what?
A patron?
Like a patron?
Maybe.
More like, I don't like using this term, especially in regards to people, but a conquest?
Maybe. There's also the possibility that, based on what he was telling her about with like her estate and whatnot, he could be working the schmoozing up to her.
Yep. Could be.
Because he did mention that he had sway over whoever it was that is holding the event that was being talked about.
I also like the fact that, as powerful as this Simon Lovelace character is, this, magician who's supposed to have all of this power, the Bartimaeus is just like, I don't give a fuck about your defenses. I could have broken through them if I tried. I needed to be sneaky about this. But on the way out, he literally walked through them like it was a fucking knife, like he was a knife through paper.
Yeah.
Maybe he's powerful by like magician standards, but by demon standards, he's like subpar.
It could be, but either way, he just didn't give a shit on the way out. He's like, I could have on the way in, but I had other things I had to accomplish, which means he understands what stealth is.
Mm-hmm.
It's also kind of interesting. Well, it makes me think like it's a powerful thing because it reminds me of an isekai subnosis I heard. Of basically a girl wanted to be reincarnated into a world where she was just average, but she didn't specify what she meant by average. So she's the average between super weak and inhumanly strong.
Oh.
Which of course would be like well above average for anyone here.
God damn it. Gotta love that law of averages. It'll get you every time, and it also depends on which average you're talking about. If math has taught me anything, because there's like 3 different ways mathematically to predict average, or to calculate averages, at least in basic math.
Mm-hmm.
Mean, median, and mode. Thanks, class. I'm curious to know about the boy's form that he took. The Egyptian boy? You said it was somebody that he loved. Yeah. Somebody that was close to him. Somebody that was dear to him.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was platonic or not.
If I remember correctly, because of what he had accomplished in his existence, Bartimaeus I'm talking, if memory serves correctly, it might have been either King Tut or someone else.
Will we eventually find out?
I think so, if memory serves correctly.
Interesting. Because he does mention that it was a long while ago, and he mentions that he recognizes the passage of time, but it doesn't matter. But the passage of time almost doesn't matter to him. He doesn't see time the same as everybody else, which, I mean, if you're basically an eternal creature, that's gonna that makes a fair bit more sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it could also theorize at some point he had a mortal form.
I'm also curious to know how demons are made.
Because there's a lot of different theories and a lot of different lores to how demons can be created.
For one of the more common ones that I like being that they were mortal at one point, that mortals that sought power, and they took too much power on and ended up literally becoming something entirely different.
Like that power corrupting them in a way.
Another theory I had was that demons are basically fallen angels that chose to say no to God, or they asked too many questions, and you're not supposed to question God, so they were fallen from grace.
Yep.
That's the that's one of the, which I always thought was kind of interesting.
That's kind of a common theme throughout humankind, though. If you have any sort of ruler or any sort of person who's trying to command people, like even today in places like the military or police force, they are known not to take people on above a certain intelligence level, specifically because people that are smarter tend to ask more questions. Why should I do this? Why is that right? And they don't like people that ask questions.
Yeah, but it's kind of what we need today.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Well, this went down a rabbit hole.
But that is the point of the Idiot Book Nook. And D-Bomb Gaming, welcome to the Twitch chat.
D-Bomb Gaming is actually a friend of ours here on the channel. He's one of the mods of my Discord server.
Oh, okay. Well, hello. I'm the Reading Dragon. Below us is Lady Punnet.
I'm not sure if you have it in your book, but we have jot notes here.
Yes, we do. We have a lot of jot notes.
So every once in a while, there's minuscule text, and it's almost like it's supposed to be footnotes, but with the way with the way our electronic copies are formatted, it just pops up in the middle of text, so we have to kind of skirt around it. So these almost look like Bartimaeus's notes on extra information, or just kind of things that might be obvious to him, but we need to know. For instance, in Chapter 1, not everyone agrees with me on this. Some find it a delightful sport. They refine countless ways of tormenting their summoners by means of subtly hideous apparitions. Usually the best you can hope for is to give them nightmares later, but occasionally these stratagems are so successful that apprentices usually panic and step out of the protective circle. Then all is well for us. But it's a risky business. Often they are very well trained, and they grow up and get their revenge. In chapter, what is it, chapter 3? No, chapter 4. When he bumped his head into the pebbles. Once each on 5 different pebbles. Not the same pebble 5 times. Just want to make that clear. Sometimes you human beings are so dense. So this is like him... So it's almost like... No, that was chapter 3. So these notes are literally Bartimaeus breaking the 4th wall.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Kind of like, you know how a lot of films nowadays on, even on special edition DVDs or special edition downloads, you can watch the film while there is commentary being done by like the director or the producer. Kind of like that. There is like some 4th wall breaking commentary happening at the same time as you read through this book. And if for those of you that might have a copy of your own at home, the little cliff notes and the little commentary bits are also notated within the actual book itself with a little number on it, and then that just leads you to where it is.
So when Faquaro mentions that Bartimaeus didn't greet him on the 7th plane, and that scene is kind of rude, he asks him if Bartimaeus is uneasy with his true form. He says, "Queasy for quarrel, not uneasy." And then there's a cliff note. There's a kind of a footnote that says, "I'm no great looker myself, but Fouquarel had too many tentacles for my liking." Flavor text. That's cool.
Yeah.
What's the last one? Such a play would be pitifully obvious to even a human. Ouch. Like an insult.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yep.
Do we have anything else we want to add to this chapter?
Nothing I can think of off the top of my head.
Nothing on my end either for the moment.
So I'm going to go ahead and close out the podcast episode then. If you guys don't mind, just bear with me for 1 sec, and then we can chat for just a moment. So, we hope you have enjoyed chapters 3 and 4 of The Amulet of Samarkand, starting the Bartimaeus Trilogy. This has been episode 20 of the Idiot Book Nook podcast, and I'm not sure what number that's going to come out as on the YouTube channel. But if you would like to follow us on socials, you can do so. You can follow Lady Punnet on TikTok at paulina.avalon. You can follow me on Linktree at linktr.ee/blazewing2010. You can follow The Reading Dragon on Linktree at linktr.ee/thereadingdragon. If you would like to take a look at our podcast hosting site, or you would like to leave us an audio message for the podcast for us to play in an episode, you can do so at anchor.fm/idiot-book-nook. And you can visit our website at idiotbooknook.wordpress.com. But with that being said, for episode 20 of the Idiot Book Nook podcast, I'm Blazewing.
I am the Reading Dragon.
I'm Lady Punnet.
And we will see you with episode 21 and potentially chapter 5.